Good morning, and glad you could join us at the virtual General Merchandise Conference and Self-Care Summit. I'm Keith Bazinski, Vice President, Member Services for GMDC Retail Tomorrow. Each morning we're engaging industry executives and thought leaders for a short chat around what they see happening on specific topics called Coffee With sessions. And this morning's session will revolve around the discussion on beauty. Leading the discussion will be Reilly Murray of L&R Distributors and also a GMDC board member. And he will be joined by his guests, Brent Beebe, Senior Vice President of Merchandising for Bartel Drugs, and Rich Baruch, Senior Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer of Elf Beauty. Before I turn it over to them though, I want to review today's schedule. First, the Buyer's Choice meetings will again take place today from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We encourage all retail and wholesale attendees to preview the GM and self-care discovery guides and continue to schedule meetings. Also, be sure to tune in today's learning sessions. At noon Eastern Time, the self-care learning session, health transformation and the role for retailers. And then at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, the Retail Tomorrow session, Future Inclusive Talent. Now, let me turn over to Reilly for a short discussion on trends in beauty with Brent and Rich, and I will see you back here shortly.
Hello, everybody. Appreciate your time this morning with a Coffee With. Today, we're spending time with Brent Beebe from Bartel's Drug and Rich Baruch from Elf. I'm Reilly Murray hosting today's coffee with L&R Distributors, and I'm going to turn it to Brent to do a quick introduction of himself and Bartel's, and then to Rich about Elf. So Brent, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Reilly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brent Beebe. I'm the Executive Vice President at Bartel Drugs. Bartel Drugs is a 130-year-old family-owned and operated regional drugstore in Western Washington. We've got just under 70 stores, really dense footprint, and great market share here in the Seattle area.
Great, thanks, Brent. My name is Rich Baruch. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Elf Beauty, which up until recently was only Elf Beauty, but recently we acquired the Well People clean beauty brand, and then just a month ago announced our launch of Keys Soul Care in partnership with Alicia Keys. So we've gone from a single brand house to a multi-brand house and are thrilled about our partnership actually with both L&R as well as Brent and his team at Bartel's.
Well, gentlemen, thanks for the time. So for everybody and Brent and Rich, the idea today was to kind of talk about how has beauty been affected in COVID? How was beauty prior to COVID? What's beauty look like in the future? Obviously, the word beauty is a big word. It's cosmetics, it's hair color, it's facial, it's accessories. So it's a big category. And to that end, we're going to start off with Brent to kind of give us the 30,000 feet is how's the beauty category prior to COVID, during COVID, and what does Brent see it looking like after, and then we'll talk about some of the nuances of beauty after Brent brings us up to speed.
And Reilly, Brent and I are friends, so I can ask Brent questions while he's talking. Is that true?
I would appreciate that.
Fair game. I just learned that you signed Alicia Keys, so I'll throw you a couple brushbacks. That's a great start. You've got a couple of great partners here on your panel today. L&R, Reilly, great service provider for cosmetics, and Elf, one of the strongest brands for the last several years. So beauty, wow, what an absolute roller coaster this has been. I think pre and post we've seen the most change in health and beauty aids and color cosmetics specifically. I know for us, we've grown the business, the cosmetics and Hobbit in total to a large percent of our total. And 2017 and 2018 were fantastic for us. Lots of glitter and saturated colors and every collaborative palette that you could imagine. And then about the back half of 18 for us, there was a telltale sign that started to happen, which was we started to see units come down. Dollars were still up, but that's usually a telltale sign of something to come. And then as we look at 2019, we saw a dramatic shift really into skincare and hygiene and self-care and away from. some of the color palettes at an aggregate level, and had plans to then sort of reimagine our that color wall from where we traditionally had been, and then here we go with COVID. So I'll pause there. You know, Rich, what's been your perspective of the space?
Yeah, thank you, Brent. So really appreciate the partnership we've had with both L&R as well as Bartels. I think we've learned a lot together. I would tell you that 2018, we saw very similar signs to what you saw in terms of a start of slowdown in color cosmetics. We are blessed by the fact that our skincare business, which I'm assuming you see what I see, which is as color slowed down, you actually saw an uptick in skincare. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. And something we've continued to see right through the last 12 months as well. And that's a little bit of a historical pattern in the beauty category, which is color has a moment and then skincare has a moment. What I would say is this is a longer skincare moment than we've seen historically. We're optimistic about both segments, but for sure, we've seen exactly what you've seen around where is the growth right now. It is, in fact, in the skincare business. With respect to our color business, that slowdown forced us to get very focused around what it is we are doing with our color business. And sometimes when things are soft, it creates the opportunity to, in fact, get even more strategic around what you're doing. And so we focused on 5 strategic imperatives to, in fact, invigorate growth in the brand. And of course, it always starts with driving demand in your brand. And so when you look at our investment in the brand in our last fiscal year, at a time when the category was struggling, we actually doubled our investment in the e.l.f. brand from sort of mid-single digits in terms of our investment as a percent of sales into the mid-teens. And it's not just sort of the traditional way of driving demand. We've always made it as a point of pride to be on the front end of emerging platforms. TikTok is probably the most relevant example, where we were one of the first brands to launch on TikTok and have generated, I think by any metric, one of the most engaging consumer brand platform campaigns in the history of TikTok. So that's been terrific. We've also been incredibly focused on digital. Brent, your view on digital right now in terms of how it's affecting your business, what are you seeing?
Seeing massive increases on the digital side. We've had to go into that space a little bit different. Being a small guy, we try to punch above our weight, meaning we're not going to own and operate our own e-commerce platform. So we've entered into the space through partnerships, but huge increases there. What's interesting, which is a head scratcher, probably a gap for us, is it's actually cosmetics isn't quite converting as well on e-commerce for us as is skincare, OTC, and other sort of self-care products. And I think it's more of an issue with my content, but it's been interesting for sure.
Yep. And so for us, e.l.f. actually started as an e-com only business. We were only available online for the first 5 years of our business. So it is sort of our DNA is rooted, I would say, in the e-com business, and across our own channel, as well as with retail partners, we've seen a significant explosion, right, in e-com pre-COVID, but post-COVID in particular, massive acceleration.
Yeah.
I would tell you the thing that we have done maybe more differently than our history has been, we used to measure innovation success in the number of items we would launch in a year. And so on an annual basis, we would launch over 100 items per year. And that was our metric. And what we decided to do was change that focus from let's launch just a ton of stuff to, hey, let's launch fewer. So fewer is still 75 to 80 items, but let's give those items a chance to breathe and give ourselves a chance to actually talk about them. So fewer, bigger, better of first to mass innovation. And that has been a massive amplifier of both our brand as well as our sales performance. And then, of course, near and dear to Brent's heart is our focus on productivity. So we take it as a point of pride to every year that we do annual resets. We are rigorous and relentless on making sure that the SKUs we're offering our retail partners will drive productivity increases on a year-over-year basis. And then lastly, cost savings, right, which is near and dear to all of our hearts, so that we can do the first thing, which is to fuel investment in our brand.
Just coming off of that, Rich, and it's also an area that Reilly and I have talked about, just the cost of the go-to-market cost associated with cosmetics, from labor, inventory, fixtures, POP. I mean, it is got to be one of the most expensive, complicated business models. And you guys have gone out with just a crystal clear prestige value prop. Can you talk a little bit about that and how important that is and some of your productivity metrics?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brent. That's terrific. So it was a great moment. We acquired the company from Alan and Joey Shama, who were the father and son founders of Elf, who carried this business through 2014. And as we were doing due diligence in the company, one of the things that just resonated with us was the fact that they broke virtually all the rules in how do you build a beauty brand. And fundamental for them was, hey, we are all about delivering high quality at an extraordinary value every single day. And all of the incremental costs and expenses that are involved in cosmetics, we don't actually think those translate well to the consumer. And so, those of us who, and I personally worked for Clorox and Procter and Coca-Cola for many years with lots of different expense lines in our business, we were so struck by the simplicity of the model, Brent, of if we just focused on how do we give the consumer the very best product and do it at an extraordinary value every single day, the efficiencies both for the consumer, the brand, and then also, of course, for the retailer, right, to take supply chain fluctuation out of it, massively enabling for the brand.
Yeah, I think everything, I'm sorry, Reilly, I know you got a comment here, but I think everything that's going on in the space plays really, really well to you both. The added complexity and the value that L&R brings, and then just how easy it is to get your brand access to the customer from a retailer standpoint. I think the two of you guys are in for a windfall here as we move forward.
Well, it is a funny story. Just if I could just rally really quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
My first interaction with Reilly was not so pleasant. So Reilly will remember this well.
Yes, a while ago.
Yep. Where in fact Reilly and L&R were they had a very different view of sort of how the cosmetics world worked, right? Just based on their historical relationships with different brands, et cetera. And it took us a little bit of time, Reilly, right, to get over that hurdle. But I think that we've both benefited, right, from thinking about how do we take cost out and focus our energy on efficiency, right, throughout the supply chain and to the consumer.
And again, it's been a win-win for both of us in terms of the vision. And then let me tie it off to you and Brent and ourselves in terms of the industry. As we know, going in, footage has come down. So with footage coming down, I think it plays off both your words, fewer and better, and it plays off innovation. So let me ask opinions, and Brent, I'll start with you. Emerging brands. So I know you've tried for years to find brands where you could get some exclusivity, that may have come down from department store arena. And Rich, I'll tie this question off to you afterwards too, based on your belief with the department stores struggling. And Brent, I'll start with you. Have you had further conversations going down that road to try to get unique brands that you can get exclusivity, or brands that used to be department store only? Any insights to that?
Yeah, so pre-COVID, call it before March, absolutely. And you two gentlemen were huge advocates of helping me network. But the theory is, how do you bring a product to market quickly at a low expense to the supply chain and get it to your customer quickly. So many great trends online, and I think that Bartel, as well as any other regional player, could be a great incubator for some of these brands to determine whether or not they should go to retail, or somebody that's looking to diversify. And honestly, it's kind of running an ELF playbook 2014 through
Absolutely.
15 as they went, how many clicks I got goes into their stores and so on and so forth. So yeah, I still think it's important, but the decision makers now, are faced with all these costs. And so, how hard does the retailer want to work for cosmetics? And if they do and they choose to, they could create a moat with their competitors and become a differentiator for their customer. That's sort of the zag from where everybody's zigging. But there's a lot of layers to get through to have the right conversation.
I mean, the consumer hasn't left. Question is, where's the consumer buying? And the question is, how do we maximize that in both electronic and brick and mortar? And so, Rich, take your opinion. Obviously, your Alicia Keys is a big play, which speaks about boutique and the like. Go ahead and run with that.
Well, I mean, I think, Brent, your point, if I understood it right, was I think from a retailer standpoint, the key is differentiation, right? And differentiation can come in many different forms, right? But at the end of the day, you want to provide your consumer, when they come into a Bartel's outlet, that in fact there's a different experience than if you were to walk into a national drug chain, right? There's something about that Bartel's experience that is in fact keeping he or she coming back. Did I get that correct?
Right.
And that's the key, Reilly, right? Which is there's many different ways to actually do that. Some of that is brand choice. Some of that can be presentation, multiple ways to actually do that, right? And the beauty of beauty, right, is that you have a vast portfolio of brands from which to choose from to be able to offer your consumer a really unique and differentiated experience.
And related to that question, the Kardashian type brands online, how do you see that affecting brick and mortar looking forward even?
So I'll take that first, Brent, maybe. I think one of the things that contributed to a start of the slowdown that we saw in 2018 was innovation in the macro started to slow down in this category. And so whether that's what's happening with traditional players or what's happening with celebrities or influencers who are launching brands, all of a sudden there was some degree of oversaturation from the consumer's perspective, or things just started to slow down. So that was an issue. At the end of the day, and I think what we're finding in terms of our own business is innovation will always be and continues to be the lifeblood of how you actually grow a brand or business. And so when someone says, hey, what's the one thing, Rich, that you would point to around what has transformed your business relative to a category that is struggling? It's our holy grail innovations that we are really taking the time to introduce and celebrate with our consumers. And so, Brent, I'm wondering whether you would agree that if you had to pick one thing, it's meaningful innovation. That's the ticket.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then I would add to that, just reducing the infrastructure to get it to market.
Yep. Well said.
That just speeds it all up. I think without hijacking, a question to you, gentlemen, as many of us are in 2021 budgeting and forecasting, and you shake the magic 8 ball, how are you looking at 2021 for beauty? Reilly, let's go to you first.
The business plan seems to be, with all the retailers we have, remember, we tend to be a heavy grocery tilt. So in all honesty, we tend to tilt towards that grocery side with regional drug as well. And less is more. I mean, so we're playing right into what you said, Rich, is that the smaller sections being a higher productivity, and you're not having an equal amount of sales reduction to footage reduction. So if you're going from 40 feet to 30, that doesn't mean you lost volume. Second part to that is it's got to look great. If you're going to be smaller, you better be sharp. So it's got to be clean. It's got to be stocked. So those two things, and then you add to the right pick a vendor with innovation. So you get the big three. You get a section that pops, you get a section that's got innovation, and a section that can be shopped quickly. So if the COVID world is still kind of lingering, they need to make a choice and make a choice quickly. So how can you help them make those choices? So from a business model, it's really nothing really overly rocket science, but it's what we see the future is a little less is more is the summary, and it's got to sell what's there. And,
We say it a little bit differently, Brent. It's the same concept that Reilly's talking about: fewer, bigger, bolder, right? So it's how do you make sure you're not trying to be all things to all people, right? That you're being choiceful about what are those things that you're trying to put in front of the consumer to make an impression and a statement, and just the impact that that strategy has had for us from a innovation standpoint and driving actually behaviors like throughout the company. It's been hugely enabling. So I think Reilly and I are saying the exact same thing, which is, hey, this is about how do you make the boldest statement that you have with the footage that you're going to allocate to the category. I think is what you said, Reilly, better than I just did.
It's the new norm. Yeah, you got to deal with what you got, and I do see natural. Just to get in a little bit more, there's a natural bend coming up, lighter palettes and the like. But this is the trends of cosmetics. We could look back 10 years and say that was big. Cosmetics is always going to have trends, and you got to make sure you're ahead of that trend and you're meeting that consumer. And it's going to change again 3 years from now. Welcome to cosmetics. Right.
And that's a super important point, right? Which I didn't make it well early, which is, hey, we consistently see this rotation around color coming in and out in terms of it being a growth driver or not a growth driver. And typically the rotation is with skincare. And we're right now in a pattern where there's an over rotation to skincare in terms of where the growth is coming from. Our own view is, looking down the path, color will be back and color will be having a moment. So guys, if we can do this again in 2 years, I bet we're having a different discussion about, wow, color is really exploding. What's going on with that?
Yeah,
that would be my bet.
The last little bit up here will just be gone.
Maybe one nugget to take away as we wrap up here too is obviously in COVID, to repeat to people who don't know it, but nail has been huge. Nail accessory has been huge. So if you have an opportunity, a retailer out there listening, it's try to get a hold of some inventory, try to get some wing panels, try to get a second location. You can't go wrong with the nail category. That doesn't diminish any other category. It simply states that when you're wearing a mask, they're going to highlight nail and highlight some eye. So I think everybody out there probably knows that, but it's one of those things just to drive home.
Great.
I think, gentlemen, any last words before we call it a day and say thank you?
Well, Brent, I'm embarrassed I'm not wearing a blazer today. Congratulations. You win the best dressed award as usual. I mean, this is a competition we have all the time, and I'm going to just acquiesce. You're the winner yet again. Thanks, guys, for your time.
No,
Appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
And yep, Keith, thank you much. Appreciate it. Talk to everybody later.
Yeah,
thank
bye.
you.
Well, thanks, Reilly. And I want to thank also Brent and Rich for having coffee with us this morning, but also sharing all of your guys' perspective on beauty. Really appreciate the time, and hopefully everybody enjoyed the discussion this morning. You know, again, as a reminder for companies participating in the Buyer's Choice meetings, these pre-scheduled meetings will take place today until 6 p.m. We've also had a few retailers looking for suppliers with specific items or attributes. One of the suggestions would be to please go to the category tab at the bottom of your discovery guide and scroll to the end of the section, and there are specific attributes for suppliers that have products in specific areas, such as made in the USA, PPE products, natural, private label, and more. So please look there. Also, be sure to tune into today's learning sessions at noon Eastern time, the self-care learning session, health transformation and the role for retailers. And then at 1 p.m. Eastern time, the Retail Tomorrow session, future inclusive talent. Tomorrow morning's Coffee With will close the 2020 Virtual General Merchandise and Self-Care Summit conferences. Join us as Patrick Spear has coffee with John Barrett and Patty Ollinger of the Worldwide Cleaning Association as they discuss the case for cleaning and how to keep consumers and customers safe, especially in stores. Thank you for having coffee with us this morning. Have a great day of meetings. Stay safe. If anyone has any questions that we can be of any service, please call us at GMDC or contact us at memberservices@gmdc.org. Have a great day.